Welcome to Monday Fun Day. I swear, we need a name for the Mondays where ArenaNet revealed to us something new, something juicy. So today is exactly one of those days. We're getting the next Elite Specialization. That is, as you can tell from the title of this video, the Engineer Elite Specialization. Very much likely to be named the Forge. For a little bit of context, guys, if you haven't been following the Heart of Thorns news circuit, this is the second to last Elite Specialization for them to announce. Even the new profession, the Revenant, has had its Elite Specialization revealed to us. That was the Herald. After the Engineer here this week, all we've got left is the Druid. I've got a lot to talk to you guys about today, namely because if you've been paying very close attention, there's more about this class than any of the other ones we've had on the day of its teaser release. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've got stuff to talk about with the original trailer for the game, and shortly later in the video, we'll be running over some footage I personally captured of one of the World vs. World New Borderlands stress tests, when it turns out one of the NPCs seems to be running this Elite Specialization. So we'll get to that when we get to it. This was this week's image. It's some concept art, very reminiscent of a character we saw in the original trailer. It's very reminiscent to some data mine concept art we've seen before. It's quite clearly a character wielding a hammer, and we have had it officially confirmed since a long time ago now that the engineer would be wielding hammer, while the other remaining Elite Specialization would be getting staff. So it seems pretty much guaranteed that this guy here is the Engineer Elite Specialization. It's funny, the Reddit thread for this was tagged as mere rumor for a little while when, come on, this is definitely not going to be the Druid, right? The other main prominent thing that this image features are some flying drones around the shoulders of this character, and this is very likely to be that profession's unique mechanic. Again, the original trailer actually showed us these guys flying around with the character. It looks like the two pieces of Elite Specialization gear are going to be this sweet, sick-ass looking hammer, as well as that very heavy-looking visor, despite the fact this is, of course, a medium armor specialization. Interesting thing about the fact that engineers are getting hammer is, of course, that they get a new legendary available. That is the Juggernaut. And the Juggernaut is really fitting as an engineer legendary weapon. It will turn them chrome and metallic looking and really hopefully play into kind of this kind of class style. So let's talk about the name a little. ArenaNet haven't themselves confirmed this is the Forge. Forge doesn't appear anywhere on the image. It doesn't appear anywhere in any text. It doesn't appear anywhere in any official source. So why are we all calling it the Forge? Well, this is because of data mining. So far, data mining was on point. Guaranteed 100% spoiled Elite Specialization names early for us, with the Warrior, which was indeed the Berserker, and also for the Thief, which absolutely was also the Daredevil. The Forge has been data mined since a long time ago now, and I don't think anyone's really questioning that this is eventually going to become its name. It's not a name I'm too fond of, personally. It's not a name that, to me, screams RPG class, but I guess they tried to get a variety of flavors of names in there, and I've seen a lot of supporters of it. At least, hey, we're not at the very bottom like we were with Dragon Hunter. Well, I took the time to sit down and have a good think and a good scrub through the wikis of Guild Wars to find out across the entire franchise how many instances have we actually seen the word Forge come up. Maybe ArenaNet found some inspiration somewhere early on. We know that through most of these Elite Specializations, usually when the teaser day comes out and I do a video like this, I miss like obvious old skills that existed in the first game that get rolled into a new Elite Specialization. You know, I end up slapping myself on the forehead saying, oh, of course that's going to be on the spec. Of course the Berserker was going to get Headbutt. Of course the Thief was going to get, you know, Dash and all these numerous other things. So what was in Guild Wars 1 in terms of Forge? Well, nothing too telling. There were some early theories about Heart of Thorns before they revealed the elite content to us, the raiding content, that perhaps Heart of Thorns would give us the Fissure of Woe back, one of these very early Guild Wars 1 raid hardcore style areas, and the Forge as a potential Elite Specialization name always fed into that speculation. Why? Because in the center of the Fissure of Woe was the Obsidian Forge, where you would basically make the equivalent of Guild Wars 1 legendary armor. That doesn't seem so relevant now, since we just seem to be getting some kind of a single wing of a single raid, you know, around the Bloodstone rather than anything else in Heart of Thorns. But yeah, Forge also appeared a lot with themes to do with the dwarves. Dwarves were crafters. They dabbled with gunpowder and a lot of the technology you see that the Char now have, you know, ran away with in the past 250 years. And in fact, one of the most prominent locations, though not the capital city of the Deljamor dwarves, a prominent location for the Deljamor dwarves and for the players in Guild Wars 1 was a location called Drockner's Forge, which is now underwater and really doesn't mean anything in the game. One of the most interesting references to Forge that I saw in Guild Wars 1 is actually to do with the Ettins. Yeah, the Ettins. You know, these two-headed, incredibly dumb, super basic, least intelligent possibly creatures we hear about in the entire damn story that go, bleh. There were actually Ettins This seemed a little smarter than that in Guild Wars 1. They were called Forge Masters. They've been found in very specific locations, and here you can see what they look like. These ends were, smart enough to get themselves fairly well geared up. They even had piercings and stuff. It doesn't look very Guild Wars at all these days. But so yeah, there were some characters like this. Again, the Obsidian Forge in the center of the Fissure of Woe had a Forge Master too, who was a ghostly centaur in appearance. Aside from that, though, there's really not too much. Moving over to Guild Wars 2, we have a couple of things. So, for example, in Edge of the Mists, we have a point of interest called the Forge, which is where you actually craft those Kodan hammers. Hammers, of course, appearing on this Elite Engineer spec. Maybe you can draw some comparisons there. There's an area in Ratasum where you craft weapons and armor, also known as the Forge, like a region area. It's the Forge Hall, and perhaps this is something telling us to what the engineers will actually be creating for themselves in this Elite specialization. And of course, we've got the Mystic Forge, also about the creation of items. Lastly, crossing the 250 years, both games do, of course, have Sorrow's Embrace, or Sorrow's Furnace, which, while itself not a forge, it is where we have, the very dwarf-related, once again, a place that is housing the Iron Forgeman, an iconic boss from both games. So definitely, I think the theme of this class is they're creating stuff for themselves on the fly, and we see at least that the unique profession mechanic has probably got something to do with drones. So let's talk a little bit about these drones for a second. My main question with this is, are we really looking for more minions? So far with the Elite specializations, we haven't actually seen too much in this department, and that makes me very happy. We've seen a little bit on the Reaper. That's, of course, a necromancer-related thing, and I think, a single utility skill like that is absolutely fine. If you want to play a minion master Reaper, then I see no problem with that at all, and the skill itself seems kind of undertuned. We see a little bit of interaction for AI on the Chronomancer, I guess, with a couple of traits that give it, aid with clone generation, but really, there hasn't been very much. This makes me very happy. I think ArenaNet are really scared of the odd petting zoo metas that they had in the past, and I personally don't enjoy gameplay when there are too many minions around. So far, so good. But now we have the Forge, and really there's only two things we know that it has in abundance. Number one, the fact it's got a hammer, and this is the engineer's first access to some kind of a melee weapon outside of their toolkit, which has a melee auto attack, and the fact that they have these drones flying around. Now, the footage from the original trailer for Heart of Thorns doesn't actually show them attacking. We had some data mining a while ago that showed a variety of them, and it seemed like they could be traded in various ways, or like upgraded, as it would be. I certainly think that the traits, for what it's worth, are, given the theme of the class and the idea that these engineers tinkering with things, I think the traits are thematically going to be like, okay, if you pick this trait, it's like you've loaded in a specific gadget or gizmo into your drones and you've augmented them in some way. And I really think that that's how we'll see that they structure thematically the trait stuff, and I'm quite looking forward to that. But how will they function in combat? Are they going to be running around on their own with AI of their own, acting like minions, or are they going to be something more akin to passives for you that heal you, augment your damage in some way? It's kind of hard to tell if they do that also from the official trailer, but then that's old footage too, and maybe a lot of the actual mechanics weren't totally in place. Do consider as well some recent quotes from the devs about the state of spirit weapons on Guardian and how they want them to feel distinct. Remember that spirit weapons originally seemed to have this similar drone design that I'm now talking about, and I wonder whether the devs genuinely do want to make spirit weapons in that place, but they don't want to reveal it to us until after the Forge has been announced, because the Forge is essentially using that same kind of technology of, things that float around with you and buff you in various ways for the Forge, and they don't want to, make it seem like it's old because Guardians already have it. Okay, I admit it, that's pretty much tin hat foil territory, but I don't think it's too left field. Next, of course, we have the new skill type to talk about, and really, we're completely up in the air here. Any speculation you might like to do about the class of utility skill the engineer will get isn't really going to be anything more than the speculation we could have done for any of the other elite specializations. Just basically, what do you think the engineer sort of needs, or what do you like the look of on the other classes, and what would make sense over here on the NG? Curiously, there is still the idea that they might get rage skills. For some reason, Berserker was the exception. They got rage abilities, and this was an entirely new class of utility skill, rather than borrowing and sharing around pre-existing ones. And the theory there would be that the Forge could get rage skills, and then there's a rune set that ties them both together. Don't forget also that the dev said, with regards to rage skills, Robert G mentioned that they charge your primary profession mechanic, not adrenaline specifically. So because the Forge is going to change their primary mechanic, they might not get their F1 to F5 anymore. They may get some kind of charging bar to create their drones or generate items and things, and the rage skills help them to build them quicker. I don't know, maybe that idea sounds a little off. The angling of this profession is somewhat interesting to me, and a funny theory was brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago with regards to the way that they have designed the previous elite specializations. We all know that ArenaNet want each individual class to have a focus on control, a focus on support, and a focus on damage. And it seems that maybe with the elite specialization, they've tried to, across each armor class, split that stuff evenly. So what do I mean by this? Well, I mean that, take heavy armor, for example. We seem to have a heavy damage-based elite specialization, that being a Berserker. We seem to have a backline control-based one with its traps and so forth on the Dragon Hunter, and then we seem to have a frontline supporter on the Herald. Those are the three. To look again at the light armor, we have a controlling character in the Chronomancer. We have the supporting frontline again on the Tempest, and we have a damaging character on the Reaper. So is that going to be matched for the medium stuff? Well, so far we've seen the Daredevil. Depending on where you would rank that, that could leave the Forge as, potentially the medium armor DPS-oriented elite specialization, or it could leave the Forge as the heavy control one, considering that the Druid is very likely going to be the more support-leaning one. Just an interesting thought that could shape the way that ArenaNet have designed this elite spec. Then in the next generation of elite specs, they would like to shift everything to the side, and this time the Necromancer isn't getting the high damage one. Maybe they'd get the control one or the support one, and with the support one we could see the Banshee or any of these other speculations that people have been throwing around. So lastly, let's talk about the hammer. The hammer, we did see a little bit of use on the official Heart of Thorns trailer, though we never saw the drones doing anything. The hammer was certainly being swung and moved around. And curiously, these abilities, with there's a powerful gap close we can see on there, they seem kind of fiery, seemed to crop up again in the new World vs. World Borderlands stress tests. So here you guys can see me running around in that stress test. This was footage that appeared on one of my videos a while ago, and I'd never noticed. I didn't notice when I was editing the video. I didn't notice when I dropped this footage into the video. I didn't notice when I was playing in the first place. But you notice we're at one of the towers. I believe we're at the southwest tower here. And as I come up, you'll find an necromancer, fighting the champion. And watch the champion. He's a big char with a hammer that appears to use like burning speed there from the elementalist. He appears to have a warrior hammer skill there, and he's generally just using a hammer in a weird combination way that we haven't seen before. That looks like a ring of fire there. I don't know, it's curious. He's got big explosive strikes as he lands down, and the hammer itself, though I don't believe is exactly the Forge hammer that we see, it's kind of interesting the abilities that he's using. So are we seeing some kind of early version of the Forge or some Forge-inspired NPC right there on Champion Brute Fang, I believe was his name? It's really a little unclear. I'd like to hear what you guys think. It's curious to me that about 35 to 40% of all comments discussing the Forge here, or the Engineer Elite Specialization, which, can I remind you, may not even have this name. There's still a slim chance it won't have this name. Most of the discussion isn't even about this. It's people saying, oh, I'm main Ranger, and I'm sad that Druid is last. I do have one thing to touch on there, which I found rather curious. It was a prevailing theory for a long time that we were getting the Elite Specialization reveals in the order that professions were listed on the Guild Wars 2 profession page, so as you can see here. And indeed, that was true for the most part. We started with Chronomancer, Mesmer was listed, then we had Dragon Hunter, and then when it came to week 3, people saying, oh, maybe we'll get Necromancer third, and we did. We got the Reaper. But then Ranger was due. And instead of Ranger, we got a different class. And so it seemed that this was just wrong, and, everyone could ignore it. It was a weird coincidence. But actually, let's put a pin in the Ranger for a second. We then did get the Tempest next. Then we did get the Berserker. Then we did get the Thief, the Daredevil, and now we're getting the Forge, or the Engineer. So it honestly seems like there was a space for the Ranger. They followed this order perfectly, guys. They followed the order except Ranger. Ranger, for some reason, got moved from this slot and put last of all. Some kind of unpredictable changes, large sweeping changes to the professions and its mechanics behind the scenes, perhaps. Also, do consider that around the time of the Necromancer, we had a long break before the Tempest came, and it seemed like stuff came up. Ruby mentioned on that one live stream around this time that there was something very exciting coming up in a future point of interest, and then never did in the end. I don't know, guys. Does that fill you druids with confidence, as there are so many of you looking forward to this class? And I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to it quite a lot too, as it's probably got, the most lore-based connection to real Tyria that we've heard at all, at least through the name so far. But there you go, guys. That's what I got to say about the Forge for today. Do let me know if I missed anything, and I'll keep you posted throughout this week as for all the information as it's revealed. Catch you next time, guys.